And I travelled around with Andrew Rolfe, with thanks to Australian Wool Innovation, Fritz, with thanks to ANZ Bank and Cotton Australia, Andrew McKillop, thanks to PSP Investments, Lucy Collins, thanks to the Gardner Dairy Institute, Charles Downey, Tasmanian Agriculture, and that's my ugly mug, Mike Cains. Thanks to my investor, the Royal Agricultural Society of New South Wales, who have been helping New South Wales farmers for in excess of 200 years. So thank you very much. Look, I think some of the big takeouts that we got was that it was both an empowering and inspiring a GFP to go on. People really felt that it lit a fire underneath them. We got an acknowledgement that there are deeper and broader insights and more powerful conversations travelling as a group than we otherwise would have if we were just travelling individually. And that we came home with a wider aperture. If we were able to see that much through our lens before we went on our GFP, we come back being able to take in just so much more. Our first stop wasn't the Netherlands, it was Singapore. And thanks, Dustin, for putting that in context. And I won't go over what you've already said, but there was essentially 3 GFPs in one that all met in Singapore for 4 or 5 days. It was sort of like a mega GFP to start off with. I think one of the things that really brought home to us was that Singapore is very serious about producing 30% of their food by 2030. This is a country that's travelling headlong into genetic engineering, lab-grown meat. And, you know, from a country like Australia where largely we're taking a precautionary posture, it's both challenging and fascinating. On we went to the Netherlands, and we're in the Netherlands close to about the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, and sunsets seemed to last forever. And it was just such a beautiful time to be in the Netherlands. One of our hosts, Peter Winters, after taking a tour of his farm, put us on a pontoon with a barbecue and a big table, and you know there might have been Heineken involved. And we travelled around this roadless village called Gieterhorn, which was just beautiful, thatched houses, you know, puttering past people's front doorsteps. Previous to that, we went to Peter's farm. Here's Peter's farm here on the right. So Peter's a potato farmer. He processes all of his potatoes into French fries, but the Dutch hate waste, you know, so he's got all these ends and peels, so decides to feed them back to chickens and some into these biodigesters. So these days he's got 120,000 chickens, he's got 4 biodigesters, he's got 7,000 solar panels, he's producing clean energy for 5,500 Dutch households. You know, so this notion of circular farming really struck home very deeply to us. And it wasn't the only farm in the Netherlands that was like this, that was constantly thinking about no waste, about efficiency, about circularity. But I think Peter was probably the greatest exemplar of it, which is why I've highlighted his farm here today. And it made us, as we went on to the USA and Canada, it just made us think that, you know, just, for instance, equating vegetarianism, say, to better for the environment statement, just misses part of the picture, because really it's about how you farm, not what you farm. So on we went to the United States. Now, on my little patch of dirt in Robertson, you know, I'm not concerned with feeding the world, but we were really interested in seeing big farm, big tech, big toys. Our first stop, one of the stops that I want to highlight was the picture in the middle. It was Volgamore Farms in Kansas. These guys have got 90,000 hectares. We're talking corn, soy, big John Deere rigs, pristine sheds, wall-to-wall chemicals. These guys are scientific farmers. There's precision, GPS tracking, drones, Google Earth images. It's just impressive. And the way they run their farm, their people and culture, the people that work on the farm were like family to them. And so we were just so impressed with their tech, their science, the way they run their farm. But most of us felt maybe a little bit uneasy with the amount of chemical we saw and the reliance on GMO crops and chemicals. And that was really in stark contrast to the picture on the left, which is we saw in Canada. That's an organic farmer who was producing much the same crops, soy, corn, but full organic. Lots of tilling. You can see that his rig is set up there for inter-row tilling between these emerging corn. And as Phil's dad goes up and down the rows, you can see these billowing topsoil, these huge pivot irrigation systems that they must be using just tons and tons of water. And I bent down and picked up that soil and it was dry and lifeless. And I just thought, well, this might be organic, but it's not. It's a long way from being regenerative, if that's what you're into. But it just started to make us think as a group that you can't have everything. If you're optimising for soil health or yield or efficiency or water usage, that's great, but you can't have everything. So that was a real eye-opener for us. That's a typical photo of me on the left, outstanding in my field. And we finished up in Washington. So on that note, I'll hand over to Kathryn. Thank you.
Cool. Hi, I'm Kathryn Fleay. I'm from Western Australia. I actually returned yesterday from the United States, so I probably won't talk as much as Michael. I'm a little bit tired, but you'll get the idea with my presentation. So our team consisted of 2021 scholars. There was 9 of us. We had Vanessa from Brazil, Ray from Ireland, Rob Bell, Western Australia, Mikey from Victoria, Lindsay from New Zealand, John from New Zealand, Brendan from Ireland, Hans from South Australia, or Southeast South Australia, as he liked to introduce himself, and myself from Western Australia. We're a very diverse group, from sheep milk in Ireland to an environmentalist from Ireland, a corn, soy and cattle producer from Brazil, and an organic...
Carry on. Nothing to do with me. I was standing still, I promise.
And an organic horticulture producer, Mikey from Victoria. Our countries consisted of Japan, Belgium, Ireland, and US or California. So the 4 countries and more than 60 visits and meetings. I think the best way to describe what we did, you could listen to me talk about individual things, but to get a really quick overview, we've got a couple of videos that we've put together very amateurly, but hopefully you get a bit of an idea of what we did. Just don't know how to play them. So Japan was a great way to kick off our tour. So huge thank you to Jodie and Wayne for hosting us there. We saw a lot of horticulture. I think that really opened everyone's eyes to the vertical integration that's happening there. I'll go into a bit more of that a bit later on. So after Japan, we went to Belgium. Don't have a video on Belgium, but I've got a video on Ireland, is where we went after Belgium. Ooh.
Oh no, see you walking around like it's a funeral. Not so serious, girl, why those feet cold? We just getting started, don't you tiptoe, tiptoe. Waste time with the masterpiece, to waste time with the masterpiece. You should be rolling me, you should be rolling me. You're a real life fantasy, you're a real life fantasy. But you're moving so carefully, let's start living dangerously. Talk to me, baby. I'm rolling down to dance, so take baby, home. Let's move our minds and go crazy, crazy. Ay, 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 ay. Keep on hoping we'll be cake by the ocean. Walk for me, baby. I'll be pretty, you'll be Naomi, oh. Let's lose our minds and go crazy, crazy. Ay, 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 ay. Keep on hoping we'll be cake by the ocean. Hot damn, see you licking frozen from your own hands. Want another taste? I'm begging, yes, ma'am. I'm tired of all this candy on the dry land, dry land. Oh. Waste time with the masterpiece, to waste time with the masterpiece. You should be rolling me, you should be rolling me. You're a real life fantasy, you're a real life fantasy. But you're moving so carefully, let's start living dangerously. Talk to me, baby.
So the greatest thing about being in Ireland with two Irish scholars is that you really get to see a different part of Ireland. I think having an environmentalist being part of our GFP really gave us a great insight into thinking very differently to some of the things that we were seeing. You know, beautiful landscapes that we thought were amazing weren't really well farmed landscapes. So just getting that perspective was awesome. We spent a couple of days in Belgium. Unfortunately, fortunately, our group was planning to go to Taiwan. That didn't happen for obvious reasons. So Belgium was our sort of substitute place. Here we met with Food and Drink Europe and the British Agricultural Bureau, where we really got a great insight into the farm to fork policies and the EU Green Deal, which gave us a great perspective for then travelling to Ireland and learning all about some of the things that they're doing in the environmental sector. We then finished in California, so here's a bit of a snapshot to what happened there. I guess to sum up some of the things we learnt, obviously we visited lots of places, too many to talk about each and every one. We sort of derived a few international themes that we saw throughout our travels. These included labour, the environment and water. So I guess I'll try and wrap these up pretty quickly. But we saw the common theme of an ageing workforce through the countries we visited. In Japan, the average age of a farmer is over 70 years old. Even though we're seeing the adoption of new technologies in farming systems, these technologies require new skills. So that's a real issue when it comes to labour. Manual skilled labour is still required. The technology that's coming in won't fix the labour shortage. And that was something that I think really hit home to all of us. We had Hans Loader from South Australia. His topic is all about data and using data to improve your business. And I think he really thought that tech was the solution to everything. And I think we really expanded our minds to say that even though tech is coming into our businesses, we need to be able to still utilise the people that we have on the ground, but we need that higher skill as well. All these places had a huge reliance for overseas staff, mainly for the manual labour. Lots of the places we visited were horticulture producers, and that will never change. We will still need overseas staff if we can't get staff from our own country. There's a change in crop type. So in the US, in California, we're seeing processing tomatoes, melons, and other horticulture crops going out of production in favour of highly mechanised production systems such as almonds. So we're seeing an oversupply in almonds, but what's that doing to our food security in other crop types? With the environment, we saw in Ireland specifically, poor agricultural practices are being maintained by subsidies. This was one of the great things that we had with Ray from Ireland being in our GFP. We're seeing these landscapes that are beautiful and green, but they're overgrazed. They're not making any money, but the farmers are still able to farm in that particular way because they're being subsidised. And that's causing negative environmental impacts on that landscape. Impacts of a changing climate, we're seeing lots of weather events, and we experienced while we were overseas. There was a heat wave in Ireland, which was, in its 30s, so pretty bloody hot. And there was a significant talk of drought and the reduced snowpack in the California area. And I think that's going to be a big story emerging in the next few years with water restrictions coming to fruition. We learned about the ambitious greenhouse gas targets in the EU, and we're starting to see organisations and individuals stepping up. There was a little clip there with the rock environment with the big cracks in it. That was called the Burren Project. It's a very specific place in Ireland, but they're learning to farm that and reintroduce livestock and farm that sustainably. So it's great to see little individual organisations doing that. Water was another big issue. I've touched on it in California. Highly reliant. All their crops are irrigated. There's no dry land agriculture there. There'll be more restrictions and land taken out of production, which is going to impact on food security. And crop types like almonds are a lot less labour intensive but require more water. So there's a lot of, comparative ways to farm, and it was a real eye-opener. I think one of the take-homes we got as a group is think global, act local. So the challenges were less people are linked with agriculture throughout the world, less people have an affinity with agriculture throughout the world, less people are agitating or advocating for agriculture in government, so there's less policy alignment with agricultural needs. And I think this is sort of what Fiona Simpson touched on last night, so it was great to see we sort of had the same sort of ideas. But with those challenges comes opportunities, and challenges for the countries that are seeing similar things. We have the ability to share these challenges and work towards shared solutions And I guess that's why Nuffield is so important, because it really helps share those ideas amongst everyone. So just to cap it off, thank you to Nuffield International and Nuffield Australia for a great experience. We think we had the best GFP group ever, but I guess everyone thinks that. And thank you also to my sponsor, CSBP.